Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to another Walking Dead video. So on this one here, I wanted to do a Q&A video. Again, thank you so much for posting all of your questions. I really do enjoy doing these Q&As every single week. This week's a little bit later. I usually do my Q&As on Wednesday. And so next week, obviously, I'll be more on track and I'll do it on Wednesday. As we're getting more into the Walking Dead like off season, I will start talking about other shows and whatnot. And yeah, because there's a lot of other things to talk about right now. And I think for the Walking Dead over like the next month, I think there will be some stuff that does come out, but I do expect a lot of the promotion to start mostly in January. And so I think that in terms of the release date for Dead City, you know, that's one thing that I'm really curious about. Like, is it coming out in June next year, or is it going to be in May, April, or March? I did a poll on X, and as of right now, it seems like everyone is thinking it's going to be April. I see actually a lot of votes for June right now. I don't think it's going to be that late because Daryl Dixon's likely going to be airing in September, and it's coming out in 2025. Like, I don't see them pushing off that show until like November, so it's going to air November and December. Like, that just makes no sense. Maybe they push it off till October, but even then, if the show is coming out in June, like Dead City is coming out in June, it's going to be 8 episodes, which is basically, it's 8 weeks, so it's 2 months, right? So even if it starts beginning of June, like that's going all the way until the beginning of August, which means that you're only going to really have the rest of August and September to promote Daryl Dixon coming out in October. So I just don't see them really doing that, to be honest. I see the show coming out most likely, like, again, in May is a little bit too far. So I could see April. I could definitely see April, like early April or March. And the rumor for the longest time has been that it's going to be coming out in March. And so maybe it's late March, which if it aired 2 months, that would go until like late May, which then would give the show, you know, I guess a break for like all of June. And then July is Comic-Con, and then they'll promote Daryl Dixon season 3, likely coming out around the usual time of September. So I do think that it might be quiet for like a little bit. There'll be little things that drop here and there over the next month, but starting in January, things are going to pick up quite a bit. And so that's my prediction as of right now, because I don't think they're going to want to push off any Walking Dead content for the same amount of time that they did from The Ones Who Lived to Daryl Dixon season 2, because that was like 6 or 7 months, and it was really, honestly, like there wasn't a lot to talk about. I don't see them doing the same thing here, and then all of a sudden we have a bunch of content airing from May to June all the way straight to November, right? Like, maybe that would be pretty crazy, but just based off of their schedule and stuff like that for releasing the spin-offs and stuff, I don't see them doing that. So yeah, but let's actually get into the very first question here. Again, if you do want to take part in these Q&As, definitely go and join the Discord. The server name is Appetite for the Dead. I will be asking for some more questions early next week. And yeah, thank you so much for posting all of your questions, but let's get into the very first question. Q&A. Do you think Daryl will ever cut his hair like in season 1? If so, when? It's really hilarious because some characters, like, their look is really, you know, based off of what the actor, I guess what the actor prefers, right? Like, if Norman Reedus wants short hair, then they're going to make it into the story where Daryl has short hair. I think it's because Norman Reedus doesn't want shorter hair, and so I think that's why Daryl's probably never going to really ever cut his hair, right? Like, I think once Norman Reedus started to grow his hair out in the earlier seasons of The Walking Dead, I think it was just, all right, that's going to be Daryl's look for now on, right? And then I think, you know, it depends, because I know Andrew Lincoln for season 9, like, they wanted to go with a shorter hairstyle for Rick. And so, or at least I remember Andrew Lincoln talking about it. I don't know if it was his decision or if it was AMC who was like, you know, or not AMC, but it would be like Scott Gimple or whoever, you know, like, I'm not entirely sure of the backstory there, but I just know that sometimes the characters do change their looks to match certain storylines from the comics, right? Like, I know Maggie, she had a shorter hairstyle, I believe, for, I think it was for season 8 or season 9. I think it was season 8, because in the comic, Maggie had a shorter hairstyle around that point. And so to answer your question, honestly, I really don't know. I think that Daryl will probably always have long hair. I don't see the character's hairstyle really changing that much in the future. But Q&A. Does Daryl season 3 look like it's in the Red Dead Redemption universe, especially in the scene with the guy on the horse going down the train tracks? Also, if Cadron meets back up with Daryl in Spain or wherever, would that feel a bit ridiculous if he finds them out of nowhere? Love all your vids, bring on 2025. That's right, I'm so excited for 2025. I think that in terms of, well, first of all, I think in terms of the last part of your question there, I think that they would have to explain it really well, yes, because I think that if Cadron ends up in Spain out of nowhere, that would be kind of ridiculous, because to him, he knows that they're going to London, right? But it depends on how they set a lot of that up, because there is that character that we saw in the trailer, right? right? There's Stephen Merchant's character. If he knows where Daryl and Carol are going, like, it depends on how they get to Spain, right? Like, if Daryl and Carol need a boat, and so the character that's played by Stephen Merchant actually like gives them a boat, and then, you know, he knows what's actually going to happen. He knows that they're going to be trapped in Spain. Like, maybe Kudrone goes down the same sort of path, like he meets that character and then something similar happens. Again, like, once we know more details about how they get to Spain, it might make more sense as to how Kudrone would eventually get there, right? Like, okay, so he'll probably end up in the same situation, or he'll learn some information about this or that. Honestly, it really does, just because they are going to Spain, it's one of those things where I do feel like Kudrone might be more of a mystery for a couple of seasons. Like, I don't know if he's going to be back in season 3 or even in season 4. Like, he might not be a part of the Spain storyline. I am hoping that he's not going to be, you know, a whole other Heath storyline, because I still get questions about Heath all the time. Like, where is he? Is he ever going to return? And I think at this point, now that the CRM story is basically all told, like, yes, they probably will still be a part of the story, but they're not really villains anymore. I think Heath likely died at some point, you know, after, I guess, the CRM got him. I think that he was probably used as a Walker experiment, because I know that Angela Kang said something about that, you know, towards the ending of The Walking Dead. So I think that that's most likely what happened to Heath. And so I hope that for Kudrone, it's not going to be similar, where it's just going to be a mystery forever, and then eventually they get around to it in like season 5 or 6 or something like that. In terms of your first question, yeah, I think that's something that we've talked about quite a bit, is that the show does feel a lot like Red Dead Redemption. And it's kind of hilarious, because I don't know if this is intentional, like they're specifically going for certain, you know, looks and whatnot for the seasons, because I would say Dead City season 1 really reminded me of Resident Evil, because I think that Maggie's look looks a lot like Jill Valentine's look. It's very similar anyways, and I think that, you know, obviously they're in New York City and whatnot. Like, it just reminds me of it. Like, if you look at the Dead City season 2 trailer, and, you know, the scenes where, I guess, some of the powers going on in Manhattan, like, that reminds me of Resident Evil 2 a lot. And so I think that, you know, it is really cool to sort of change it up a little bit, because the way they are doing it, honestly, it feels like if that was a Resident Evil show or like a Red Dead Redemption show or something, like, I would absolutely love this overall look, you know, to fit those shows. And so I think that, yeah, they're doing a really amazing job. And yes, I am getting those vibes from Daryl Dixon season 3. It does look a lot like Red Dead Redemption, but I think it's absolutely incredible. But Q&A, do you think Scott Gimple is unsure about the future of the Walking Dead universe? Because we haven't seen any new information about the Triple P card, the running walkers, etc. Why are they waiting too long to give us any answers? I think that, I mean, he's probably not like unsure about it. I think he knows probably where it's going, but I think it is one of those things where, again, it is frustrating, because he talks about like these pivot points, or he's mentioned it recently. And I find it really frustrating, because I think that he does look at certain moments of like, all right, we're going to reveal this and that here, but we're gonna just not tell as much information just in case this happens here and we maybe have to do this, and so we can like pivot to like this thing here. I'm not a fan of that, because it feels like we're constantly being teased, and like, you know, this might happen but then it just never happens, or like eventually it does but it's like it's just too late already at this point because we don't really care too much anymore. Like, that is definitely a concern, I would say, like with The Walking Dead in terms of like the Triple P card anyways, because like I'm excited about it, but like I don't even really know what it is anymore, so I don't really care. And so I think that that's the thing, you know, in terms of a lot of this here, is he does need to start to actually give us a lot more answers, because I think that you can only really do that for so long, right? And in terms of the running walkers, like, yeah, that is something that is kind of frustrating, because it seemed like the intention in season 1 of Daryl Dixon was that the connection was there. These super walkers were the same as the walker in the World Beyond post-credit scene, but it just looks like out of nowhere they just sort of changed it. And so now it almost looks like Janae and, you know, them working on super walkers was more inspiration from what the France government and all that was doing with like walkers and stuff. And so, it does add more intrigue, I will say, into the whole world, because he is giving us some more information in terms of, you know, the walker origin and whatnot. So we are starting to get somewhere with some stuff there, but I think he just likes to take his time with the story overall. And I think that, I mean, obviously the one thing that I will say is that, you know, when people do complain more and more about it, we do seem to get a lot more information right away. And so I think that, you know, fans are starting to get to the point right now where, at least in terms of Daryl Dixon anyways, where it's like, you know, there's frustrations there. So I think that AMC is going to hear all of that, and we're going to start to see a lot more story coming out and all of that. So I do think that it is going to happen. Again, I think that Gimple, I like what he does with The Walking Dead overall, but I think that in terms of the CRM story, like, that was something that I think for him, in terms of writing all of this, that, you know, we did get a lot of information that came out during that show. Like, yes, we don't like how it ended, but, or at least a lot of us don't like how it ended, but I think that overall, there were a lot of reveals of the CRM, a lot of things that actually did pay off from years ago in that story. So I think that right now we are building up to something else. And so, you know, I think Gimple is maybe unsure about, you know, how an Endgame story would happen. I think he knows it's probably going to happen, but how is it going to happen? Is it going to be The Walking Dead season 12? Is it going to be The Ones Who Live season 2 or 3? Is it going to be on Daryl Dixon season 5 or 6? Or is it going to be on a brand new show entirely? Like, I think that's sort of what he doesn't know, but he is sort of, I guess, planning things out right now to eventually get to that point. And so that's why I think that Laurent going back to the Commonwealth, like, that was a big thing, right? Q&A, since they hinted in Daryl Dixon season 2's finale about England locking down the island and the military had everything under control, do you wonder if they will ever explore that? I actually want to do a video on this because it is really interesting in terms of how London, I guess, or England really responded to everything and what was in that tunnel. I'm curious on that in terms of how the military, you know, handled everything and all that. I still have to do a lot more research on that, but I think they will explore that at some point for sure. I think Cadron's story could even be a part of that. You know, I think that could be how, you know, maybe a season 5 comes into play. I think any little thing like that is usually intentional, and we will see something like that in the future. But obviously we don't know until we actually see it, right? So I think that at some point, I mean, they gave us enough of a story there, enough of a mystery there where it wasn't just like this small Easter egg in the episode. Like, it seems like that will come up at some point in the future, and maybe that's like season 5 towards the end of the Spain storyline. So we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, I'm gonna leave it here. Thank you so much for posting all of your questions. I hope you all enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.